Hey, everybody. Guess who it is? Oh, you already know because you're the one that pressed play. It's me, Meredith Wynn with Be You, handcrafted by God. Hey, how's everybody doing? What is happening? Well, today is Thursday in my world. When are you listening? It's actually feeling a little bit like fall last couple days over here too, so that's nice and refreshing. Listen, I don't know if you had a chance to hear my podcast from not last week. Shoot, when did I do it? Last week or the week before? It talks about not being selfish. Did you hear it? Whew. You know, it's amazing in life too what happens when you're just walking in your journey and things just kind of pop up, or you see patterns of things and you notice patterns of things and you observe and take note, make adjustments, and see in your heart if there's anything that would apply to you that you need to adjust. And along the lines of being selfish and not being selfish, and being courteous and kind and all of those things. We find too in relationships, maybe one is more of a taker and one is more of a giver, and it creates an imbalance, right? And I am shifting in my life in this season. There are some pretty cool things happening, and I have had to pivot in some areas and readjust some things schedule-wise, life-wise. There's a time to speak and a time to be silent. And there's been some areas and spaces where God has had me be silent in. And even with some relationships, kind of shifting perspectives with those. And no ill, no nothing there. It's just I'm shifting, and I am in the middle of some things, and not where I was, not yet where I'm going. And how many of us know, and I'm sure we've heard it before, sometimes it gets muddy in the middle. Sometimes it gets murky in the middle. And you really have to lean in. As you guys know, if you've heard this podcast in any time of these segments, I live my life as a Christ follower. My views are based on biblical perspectives and a biblical worldview. And so, I try my best to live as a messenger of the gospel. And so in that, there's givers, there's takers. I had a meeting today and was sharing with the gal. Sometimes we talk about wanting to give or wanting to sow, but the Bible tells us that God gives seed to the sower. And if you have no seed, that maybe you need to make some adjustments on your sowing. Maybe you have become more of one that takes and takes and takes and not really gives, right? And friendships are like that, right? Primarily when one person is a taker and not a giver, it can feel draining, right? Can anybody relate? Imbalanced, unsustainable, imbalanced in effort. Let's take a look at some things, right? In healthy relationships, both people contribute. Be it business, romantic, sisterhood, family. Both people contribute. Quality of terms of, time and energy and support and care, right? A friendship where only one person takes, it can feel one-sided, right? And what does that do on the other side of that person feeling as though it's one-sided? They feel undervalued or taken for granted. And that's where it creates an imbalance in effort. And what does that do? It causes emotional fatigue. Has anybody been there? Can anyone relate? What does that emotional fatigue move into? It's draining. Friendships that are takers can leave a giver feeling emotionally drained. And I am a giver. I am not, and that's not braggadocious. That's just something I love to live as a giver. Life has granted me some some times of hardship, but being on the other side and realizing that life can be taken in one quick second, I want to leave a legacy of, and maybe because this is that I'm in the upper half mark of my life, I want to leave a legacy that this girl, Meredith Yuan, made such a profound impact in this world, even if it was something so small or minimal, can still be profound and impactful. Oftentimes we talk about a crowded room and that's big impact, but do you know that with spending one-on-one time with people is profound in impact? I have a student that I had a couple years ago, 88 years old. One impact, one moment with her in a class that I taught impacted her so much so that she went on to impact 7 or 8 other people. So there is moments where we can make that tremendous impact, and making sure that we are aware of our emotions, and if we're drained, right? Friendships that have takers only can leave that giver feeling emotionally drained. So I know for me, I have to take steps back, right? Takers only rely heavily on others for emotional support, help, or favors, but rarely reciprocate, right? If you're a giver, I do take a look at, how many times are all these people that are take, or pray for me here, or can you do this for me, yada, yada, yada. But very rarely, how many times do they really check in on you, right? And again, we don't give to get, but it is kind of refreshing when they pour back into you as well, right? Over time, it can really leave a giver feeling exhausted, neglected, and sometimes even resentful if you're not aware of that, right? If you're not aware that relationships that you have is, they have that mutual support, right? That's healthy to have a friendship that's built on care, right? And mutual support. What if you have relationships in your life, let's take a look at, potential manipulation, right? Or someone that is constantly neglecting your boundaries. Takers really often disregard boundaries of others, right? No is really a complete sentence. And no is no. No is not, no, I can't be there because, or no, I can't do this because. No is just, I'm not able to do that. You really don't have to give an explanation as to why you don't. No is no. And that's a boundary. And it doesn't mean you have to be rude about it. It's just that, no, I'm so sorry, I'm not able to do that. Or not even sorry. It's just the answer is no, right? Takers often disregard the boundaries of others, right? They expect constant availability or ask for favors without even considering how it affects somebody else, right? You have trust issues. And, for a giver, such friendships like that, it actually can provide opportunities for growth. I talk a lot about these on these podcasts about growth. I really do love growing. Sometimes in the stretching part, holy smokes, it's like, ow, did I really say I wanted to grow? Just kidding, God. If you got to watch those prayers that you ask for, right? Or prayers that you pray, because God will put you in situations and circumstances that cause you to do the thing you're asking for, right? Growth and healing, right? For friendships, they, as I was saying, provide an opportunity for us to learn about healthy boundaries and valuing yourself. It could be a step back, or maybe address the imbalance in the friendship. But it may be a necessary time to have, conversation, encourage healthy boundaries or healthy dynamics, conversations can make a world of difference, right? Especially in the day and age right now of social media and the underlying messages that people post and the passive aggressive and look, man, if you want to say something, just say it, but the back and forth kind of craziness, anyway, that's a whole nother topic for a whole nother day. But even though we are called as Christ followers, we are called to love and serve one another, according to Philippians 2:3-4, right? Friendships that also should also reflect mutual love and respect, right? That is modeled by Christ. Proverbs 27:17 reminds us that iron sharpens iron. So one person sharpens one another, right? A true friend strengthens and builds you up, not drains you. And it's all of these things, we have to look at and constantly measure, right? We have to take a look at if we're out of balance, right? We have to reflect on the relationship, right? Communicating healthy boundaries with friends, it honestly, it can be difficult, but it is essential for maintaining your emotional and mental well-being, right? Sometimes we often hear people say it is well with my soul, but I'm sure sometime along the journey in this communication tool here that I have said, sometimes really our soul is not well. And our soul can become unwell and unrested when we don't communicate these things that bother us, or things that we need to establish and give guide to people on how to treat us, right? We are the ones that establish how people treat us. And that means putting healthy boundaries into that relationship. And, before having the conversation, take time to reflect on specifics that are draining you. Sometimes I'll ask my husband, he'll say, well, when you do this, this, and this, I'm going, like, what are you talking about? I don't even realize what you're talking about. Tell me the specific time. And he goes, well, I can't recall. Well, then I can't help you. That's a kind of ongoing joke between us and stuff. But it is true. Sometimes it happens, because sometimes you just kind of keep it moving, right? But you have to understand the issue clearly so that the other person can make those adjustments, right? Be honest and direct. Notice I said be honest and direct, but don't be honest and rude. Don't be honest and mean, right? There are ways that we can communicate effectively using I statements, right? Not when you did this and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, right? It really is important that we communicate, hey, look, when this is done this way, this is how I'm feeling. Because the reality is we cannot grow in these spaces of relationships if we don't communicate our needs, right? Setting those specific boundaries, communicating your limits calmly, right? And you might want to be prepared, because sometimes the reality is, and this is real, okay? Sometimes takers will get offended. Seriously, they will get offended when you begin to establish boundaries. So you have to be prepared for different reactions, right? Your friends may respond in surprise or denial or defensiveness, guilt. Be prepared for those types of reactions that kind of rebuttal your communication with them. Or I didn't do this, you maneuvering through those conversations are hard, but they are necessary. They are necessary. Explain the importance of mutuality, right? And this again goes across the board: business, friendships, sisterhood, family, your husband, wife, romantic relationships, right? There has to be an understanding. Right? It's not just, we often hear too in relationships, communicate, but we can communicate all we want. If there's not comprehension and understanding on the other side, you're really not going to be able to have the breakthrough needed to get where you're going, right? So helping the person understand that healthy friendship involves mutual support, right? That you're making an investment, not just taking. You are making that investment, and you will get a return on your investment. Stick to those boundaries, right? And look, the reality too is if your friend doesn't respect what you're asking, you may need to reassess the friendship, right? You may need to have multiple conversations, but it may come to a point too where it's like, hey, this isn't serving well. It's not promoting the growth needed for me to get to the next level or excel in the areas I need to excel in. Then maybe it's time to release the friendship. A true friend's going to respect your needs, right? And if they're going to refuse to change, it may be time, right? Of course, again, biblical perspective, Christ follower, pray for God to guide you. Pray for wisdom. If a friendship is important to you, pray on how to approach the conversation. Ask God for wisdom in communicating with love and for strength in maintaining your boundaries, right? Proverbs 3, 5, and 6 reminds us, trust in the Lord with all your heart, because He's the one that's going to direct your path, right? And if your friend, if you've had these conversations and your friend has made the adjustments, acknowledge those changes, right? Acknowledge that effort. Acknowledge it with the positive reinforcement, words of affirmation, and it will continue to strengthen your relationship as you grow in years. I've had some friends that I've been in friendship with for 30 some odd years, 40 years, right? In my marriage, I've been married 12 years and together 13 years, and I will tell you, through some of the hard times in communication and comprehending and understanding and merging our lives together, it has not always been how it is today. And there is a mutual understanding and respect that, like, hey, if you don't like something, you have to communicate that. Communicate it in a manner to where I like to call it communicate and carry, where you can communicate something to someone in an effective way that you carry them through the conversation that brings forth the comprehension and understanding in the end. And what happens? You both win, right? So, my friend, I hope this podcast has been a blessing to you this week. I hope you are doing amazing and do what you do to make an impact in this world, because, buddy, my friend, my girl, you are important and you matter. So take these nuggets and apply them, okay? I love you. I'll see you next time, or maybe chat with you next time on Hey Be You, handcrafted with yours truly. No, handcrafted by God. I didn't handcraft you. He did. Anyhow, I love y'all. Thanks for listening, and I'll chat with you next time. Bye for now.